The Tánaiste.
Thank you, Éireann Corla. This budget marks a decisive shift. The economy is growing, unemployment is falling and confidence is returning. The first phase of the recovery is complete and we're now starting the second, restoring living standards for families, for older people and for low and middle income workers. This budget will cement the economic recovery by sharing the fruits of that recovery in a fair and equitable manner that gives the greatest proportion of the gains to low and middle income workers. This is a fair budget. Families, older people and low and middle income workers will benefit. Businesses will remain competitive. Through shared prosperity, all Irish people will begin to feel the recovery in their everyday lives and in their standard of living. And we will not do anything to imperil the recovery. The government will continue to do what is right for Irish families. There will be no return to the recklessness of the past. The 2015 budget is built on the foundations of economic recovery. It is crafted to sustain that recovery, to broaden it out so that it nurtures both social and economic renewal. It's a fair and it's a prudent budget. It combines modest but focused increases in public expenditure to address clear and identifiable needs with adjustments in taxation which target available resources to the benefit of low and middle income families in a responsible way. At the same time, we've ensured that the ongoing repair of our public finances is continued and that we achieve our targets for public debt and deficits within a comfortable margin of safety. Budget 2015 ensures that the economic dividend from the recovery is used to invest in sustainable growth, communities and public services. On the expenditure side, compared to earlier ceilings, which envisaged reductions in spending across government departments of almost £1.4 billion, the government in Budget 2015 will increase expenditure by £639 million. This will allow investment to be made in priority areas such as affordable housing provision, the health service, education and social protection, while maintaining overall expenditure levels within prudent limits. The coexistence of severe housing shortages in major urban areas with widespread vacant property in other areas of the country is a clear manifestation of the dysfunctional nature of housing policy during the boom years. This is a social and it's an economic problem which we have to address immediately to avoid it becoming a crisis. Our commitment to resolve this issue is clearly demonstrated by a commitment to a capital investment of over £2.2 billion for social housing provision over the next 3 years. This capital investment is part of a multifaceted approach that has been adopted, which combines a number of tax incentives to encourage supply, additional current and capital expenditure to provide additional social housing units in the short term, and a number of off-balance sheet vehicles for the provision of affordable housing in the medium term. Providing for the health of our citizens is a key priority for the government. The government will provide some £13.1 billion for the delivery of health services in 2015 to ensure that core services will continue to be delivered and improved, including our mental health services. One of Ireland's key assets is its educated workforce. The importance of education to our society, to our economy and to the individuals and the families and parents cannot be overstated. The government is providing £8.3 billion to education in 2015 and this will include funding, I'm happy to say, of 1,700 additional full-time posts comprised of 920 mainstream teachers, 480 resource teachers and 365 special needs assistants. Our teachers do a great job. We have growing numbers of young people, and I'm happy to say we will be having an extensive recruitment of teachers and people who work in schools next year. Added to the fact that during the time of my colleague Rory Quinn and of the current Minister, we've got over 150 schools, new schools, in a time of very deep recession built, and I hope all deputies have a chance, I'm sure they have, to visit some of those schools, because they are a testament to what Ireland can do when we all act together. In agriculture, we have additional resources in the region of 30 million, which have been found to address real needs in the agricultural sector, such as the smooth transfer of land from older farmers who wish to retire to younger farmers in need of that land. On the revenue side, additional taxation-raising measures amounting to about 700 million have been set aside, and instead a modest and a carefully targeted package of income tax reductions totalling about 500 million will boost disposable incomes of low and middle income families. All the available levers, including rates, bans and thresholds, have been employed to deliver a progressive income tax reform which targets relief at low and middle income earners. So accept its complex set of changes to target that particular group, but that targeting low and middle income earners is absolutely the best policy in terms of tax reform in this country at this point in time. The changes in the universal social charge, the USC, including an increase in the entry point from 10 to 12,000, a broadening of the lower rate band, and cuts to the two lowest rates by a half percentage point each will be of particular value to lower earning workers. In the income tax side, the standard rate band has been increased by 1,000 for a single person, double obviously for two people, for a couple both working, and the top marginal rate has been reduced by 1%. Again, a carefully modulated structure of changes. Taken together with the adjustment to the top USC rates, these changes cap benefits for incomes over 70,000. So in other words, everybody gains, obviously as people have significant amounts of earning, but the higher gains are capped at 70,000, and that's as it should be, that's fair. And it targets the relief at low and middle income workers. Budget 2015 provides an additional $3 billion in resources for the domestic economy compared to previous plans. This will help to sustain the already strengthening recovery in the domestic economy, which will support an additional 50,000 jobs next year, with unemployment set to fall further to 10%, we hope, by the end of 2015. Unemployed people, our unemployed people, need to be ready to take up these jobs. And the recently launched Pathways to Work 2015 maps the way forward to providing people with the necessary skills to get back to work. To support the implementation of Pathways, my own department will spend $1.6 billion in 2015, together with education, to provide approximately 300,000 work and training places. And for a lot of people who are unemployed through no fault of their own, this will give them and their families and their communities the fresh start that they want. In addition, 12 million has been allocated for the Job Path initiative in 2015, which will match the long-term unemployed with appropriate training and employment opportunities, not just in urban Ireland, but I'm happy to say in the tailored programme in rural Ireland as well, and that's important. We're also doubling the number of Jobs Plus positions to 6,000, with a focus on young unemployed people at a cost of $13.5 million in a full year. And again, Jobs Plus has been a very significant success. And again, the benefit of Jobs Plus has not just gone to the big cities like Dublin, Cork and Galway. It's reached out to every town and village in Ireland. To ensure that there's a focus on lower paid workers and in line with the government's statement of priorities, the government will establish a low pay commission in 2015. In the corporation tax system, a suite of measures, including revisions to tax residency rules and adjustments to the R&D tax credit, will maintain the competitive nature of the Irish corporate tax structure while sustaining a fair contribution from the corporate sector. In addition, a number of small measures are targeted at start-ups and SMEs, which form the backbone of employment creation in the Irish economy. The social welfare budget for 2015 is an example of the approach. Overall expenditure will fall, thereby helping to ensure that public finances remain strong. Last year, the year before and this year, social welfare gives back to the rest of the government budget, particularly in the health area, because of the savings we make when people get back to work. There's still room, though, within this budget, notwithstanding what we give to other areas of the government's budget through getting people back to work. There's still room for almost 200 million of targeted increases in certain social welfare payments and new incentives to help people back to work. And it is precisely because of the surge of people returning to work that these objectives can be achieved. And that's why I'm promoting them for next year. I want everybody here to become a persuader of getting anyone they know whom they can help back to work. It's really important that the culture in this country changes. We want a good welfare system, but we want people in their working years at work. That's basic. That could be self-employment, that can be employment. There's all sorts of models developing which offer a range of opportunities, particularly to younger people. The Pathways to Work strategy has helped ensure that unemployment has fallen from the crisis peak of 15.1% to 11.1% now. Having a job is the best single protection against poverty, and it's the single best path to a better future and to an independent future for an individual and for their families. And it's the single best way of reducing welfare expenditure. Not only that, but I can say, as Social Protection Minister, so many people are just so anxious to go back to work that if we can match the people who want to go back to work with the employers who are now beginning hiring, so they take a goodly proportion of the people from the live register, well, again, we will have got to where we want to go to. All existing welfare supports and payments will be maintained in 2015. There will be no reductions. Increasing employment has boosted PRSI receipts, while the decline in unemployment has reduced expenditure on unemployment supports. This has improved the finances of the Social Security Fund. It's released resources to fund a number of targeted measures to help other job seekers return to work, to increase child benefit and further protect vulnerable groups such as older people and people with disabilities. I'm therefore announcing a number of initiatives costing £198 million with 4 key objectives. These are assisting unemployed families to return to work by providing continued financial support, helping all families in the state with the cost of raising children, helping all families whether they're in work or not, but where there are children there will be a €5 increase in the monthly child benefit payment, and the same next year. Recognising the additional pressures on pensioners and people with disabilities who are living alone, small but a significant and important increase, and helping vulnerable welfare households to meet the costs associated with water services. I want to talk in particular about the new Back to Work family dividend. Through the scheme, long-term unemployed job seekers with children who leave welfare to return to work or to self-employment can retain the child-related portion of their social welfare payment on a tapered basis over 2 years. This includes those who move to self-employment. I want to say that to people in the construction sector who may have lost their jobs because many people in the construction sector nowadays are self-employed, given the way developments have gone in that sector. So if they do, they will get €1,550 per child in the first year of employment or self-employment, and half that amount in the second year, while their work patterns as they go back to work recover and their income hopefully rises. The scheme will cost €22 million in 2015 and €46 million in a full year. The dividend, the Back to Work family dividend, will help increase the pace of the progress we are making in helping people back to work. And again, it's going to help the recovery. The measure taken together with employer incentives under Jobs Plus and activation measures under the Job Path scheme will ensure that people who have remained on the live register for a long period of time can also benefit from the recovery in the labour market. And remember that the families in this situation almost inevitably benefit from family income supplement, to which we are allocating a very significant additional amount of money because of the numbers of people going back to work. So 3 measures in the budget therefore: the child benefit for everyone who has a child, the Back to Work family dividend for people returning to work, and the family income supplement, which is a well-regarded, well-established scheme that we've revamped to spend an awful lot more money on both this year and next year. Moving again to supports for children more generally, the increase in the child benefit rate of €5 will bring the monthly rate from €130 to €135 per child at a cost of €72 million in a full year. This recognises the sacrifices that families made during the economic crisis and the fact that families are continuing to face difficulties. In our statement of priorities by myself and the Taoiseach earlier this year, the Government promised a new deal on living standards for hard-pressed families, and this increase is in line with that commitment. Looking at pensioners and people with disabilities, there will be an increase in the living alone allowance of €130 per week, bringing the rate from €770 to €9. This measure will benefit over 177,000 people at an annual cost of €12 million. The Government is committed to reducing the risk of poverty of marginalised groups, including older people, those with a disability, and particularly older people and people with a disability who live on their own. People living alone can be more vulnerable to economic deprivation than a 2- or 3-person household where, to some extent, resources can be pooled. The increase in the living alone allowance will help address the risk and provide for a greater level of income adequacy for both pensioners and people with disabilities living alone. The payment was last increased in 1996, and I think it's good that we have some resources available to target this particular group of people. In line with the statement of priorities, I'm introducing a water support payment of €100 to recipients of the household benefit package to help older people and other vulnerable groups meet the cost of water services. The payment will be €25 paid every 3 months and will be paid directly to the beneficiary household at a cost of €42 million in a full year. In addition, I'm introducing a payment of €100 per annum to fuel allowance recipients who are not in receipt of the household benefits package. And we signalled these changes in the statement of priorities last July. Last July and subsequently, I also held extensive meetings as Minister for Social Protection with organisations interested in the area of social protection and interested in representing older people, people with disabilities, general issues, organisations like the Society of St Vincent de Paul and organisations dealing with children. So the budget very much reflects the advice and the requests that they gave to me in relation to where they would like to see policy going in Ireland. These measures will actually assist almost 700,000 households. 700,000 households, and the payment is per household. It's not an individual payment, it's one payment for a household. A tax allowance then for water charges at the standard rate for those in employment has already been announced by the Minister for Finance. I just want to mention the Christmas bonus. That's a time when, people are under a strain to have a celebration, and it's a difficult time for families who are dependent on social welfare benefits for financial support. I'm pleased to announce that this year a Christmas bonus of 25%, a partial restoration of the Christmas bonus, will be paid to recipients of long-term social welfare payments. There will be a minimum payment of €20, and the payment will benefit over 1.16 million social welfare recipients at a cost of €65.5 million. And the Christmas bonus was introduced in 1980, and I suppose for any of us who work with or have old people in our families that we're particularly close to will know that it was a very much appreciated payment, which allowed people a little bit of easement in terms of the cost of Christmas. And I'm happy to say that in terms of a recovery, and this is a recovery budget, that we should have a small dividend for people who I think all of us respect and want to see being, if you like, enabled to have a little extra in terms of resources. These measures will help more people overall return to work, particularly families with children, support all families with children, as well as our pensioners and people with disabilities who live alone, and assist low-income families on welfare to meet the costs associated with water services. Throughout the crisis, the government protected core social welfare rates and maintained a massively strong social welfare safety net. This was a political choice which this government made, both parties, very deliberately. It was not one that was followed in other bailout countries. We got advice to follow from some of the people on the opposition, other bailout countries, and we didn't. We chose to maintain our strong social welfare system rather than go down the road of default and throwing our hats at it. We actually chose to work it and to actually create a sustainable and a sustained recovery. This is acknowledged by the ESRI, among others, which has pointed out that unlike in other countries, income inequality has fallen in Ireland in recent years, largely because of the overall maintenance of the welfare system. But we didn't just maintain the system throughout the crisis, we actually also transformed the system to, yes, it's a social welfare income support system, but it's now also a public employment service which helps to get people back to work. And it's developing the second aspect, the dual aspect, that actually gives us more resources, more saving for government in general, and then allows us to target some of those extra resources at people who do need and are entitled to support from a social welfare income, like our pensioners and our retired people, and also families with children. So in doing that, we have strengthened the springboard back to work. I have always said that my idea of the social welfare system is that it should be like a trampoline or a cushion. It's there to support you and catch you if you fall ill or if you lose your job or when you retire. But in relation to young people of working age, it's actually there to lift you back up and get you where you want to be, back into work, education and training. And that really is the social contract. And we say that now to young people, and we say that to people who come unemployed. Yes, we'll support you with income, but we require then that you do everything to make yourself available to get any work that's suitable for you, and to train, to educate, to either get back to work or maybe to create a small business or self-employment. And that strengthens Ireland's recovery. So the resources for this budget represent the combination of painful adjustments that are no longer necessary due to the recovery, and some modest but considered additions to expenditure and taxation reliefs which will nurture and sustain the recovery, making it real and tangible in the pockets of low-income and middle-income families and people in particular. We are not in the realm of the sort of reckless abandon which I have to say was the calling card of the previous administration and is currently favoured by many people on the opposition benches. We've made real and substantial progress in repairing the enormous damage that has been sustained to the Irish economy, but more importantly to our society and to our confidence and belief in ourselves as a people. I have to say, though, the goal against Germany last night probably did as much for our self-confidence as the budget day announcements yesterday, so well done to our team. But our work is not done, just as that team's work is not done, and I think we've high hopes and expectations. The aim here is to sustain the recovery, not to undermine it. The budget does mark the start of a new journey for people in Ireland. It's a budget that ensures that all our citizens benefit from the economic recovery. In the coming years, with the increased economic growth, we hope to see an Ireland where there will be more people in work, where there will be more houses for people to live in, and where the vulnerable can be assured that they will be protected. It is a journey that I think will lead Ireland to a shared prosperity. Thank you.